Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our Friday Product Owner and TGIF episode with Sofia Katsaouni. Hey, Sofia, welcome back.
Hello, Vasco. Happy to be here and happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody. That's it. Happy Friday. Right. So, product owner, and we'll talk about what great product owners look like in a minute. But for now, share with us, Sofia, what might have been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
So I think the worst anti-pattern I witnessed was very early on in my career when two people that were both kind of the managers of the team, of the developers of the team, that's what I mean, the team, wanted both to be the product owners because, as they said, they both own the product, whatever this means. And yeah, so that, as you can imagine, having two product owners for the same product is problematic for many reasons, right? Because a product owner is someone that's supposed to give direction. So if you have two people, where do you get the direction from? Especially if they might not always be super aligned, right? As one person who is making the decisions on this direction and guidance. And of course, the power imbalance that exists, right? Structurally, when the product owner or product owners, except from being two, which is problematic in itself, are also the managers of the team, right? So then there is also not necessarily this collaboration happening. Then it might be this dynamic of, okay, the product owner is giving us orders and of what tasks to do, and then we cannot really push back on that, right? Or share our opinions or ideas of a different approach, for example. So yeah, I think that was the biggest anti-pattern I have witnessed.
So the immediate thing that comes to mind is something you already mentioned, which is when there are two people in a product owner role, then you immediately lose direction, not because, these people don't want to do things right, but because they want to do things right. And because when there are two people and they want to do things right, they're going to find how to do it. And when those are not completely coinciding, right? Like they don't even need to be contradictory. They just need to be like different diverging thoughts about where the product should go. And this creates a huge problem for the team. And then when you add to that something you also said, which is the fact that the team members were subordinates to these product owners, then of course they will have to do it. And obviously they have no way to come back and say, hey, we don't think this is a good idea because here's a better idea, right?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that many of our listeners have been working with teams that are at least on the second side of the anti-pattern, right? Where the development team is subordinate to the product owner who is on a management position. But if you could go back in time and kind of work in that situation again, what would you try to do differently to try and resolve these two anti-patterns?
So I think I would have a more, I don't know, let's call it stronger conversation with these people. By the way, one of these two people was also my manager. So let's add this structural challenge in the equation. But anyway, I think what I would do now would be that I would really, I did it then as well, but I would do it maybe more strongly, recommend that there is one product owner. So even if it's one of the two, if that's not under discussion, that at least it's one, so we can at least have one guidance and the team can know, okay, this is the person we can get this guidance from. Because of course, if they would reach out, depending on availability to each one of them, they're just different people, right? They're two different people. Of course, you don't get the same answers. They're two different brains. So I think that would be one. I would insist on having one product owner and would let them choose that, basically. And then to resolve the other anti-pattern, I think that's more systemic. I think that's more organizational, right? So it's not just talking to these people. I think it would be part of also what I did then was did a session on the product owner role where these people participated. So what is the purpose of the role? What is the responsibilities? How is it seen from the Scrum perspective as well? Since this is where it actually comes from. But yeah, I don't know, to be honest. Like, that was a very big organization that wanted to be agile and wanted to do agile just in 2 teams. So I think maybe I would just understand that it's not possible to do this change, right? Sometimes that's also what it is. We try to bring change.
Absolutely, and I think that you mentioned that very well, right? Like, it's a systemic problem, as you said. So we can't necessarily solve it by just talking to these 2 people. There may be other reasons that one of these becomes the product owner, so manager and product owner at the same time. But one of the things that I was thinking about, we have often talked about here on the podcast, about the anti-pattern of the PO proxy, right? So the PO who is a proxy, who is not making decisions, and therefore, of course, doesn't always have the answers to the team. But there is also a way to establish a PO proxy as a collaborative and a productive pattern for the PO role, when there are multiple stakeholders who have strong views and they don't align necessarily without, and here's the key, facilitation, right? Then we can have the PO. Of course, the PO would have to have facilitation skills, but the PO can facilitate these multiple threads, and it could be even more than 2. We've had several stories here on the podcast where there were PO committees, right? Like 5 or 6 people with the PO role, which kind of amplifies the problem even further. But if we put a PO proxy now between the external stakeholders and the team, there are certain skills that are necessary for that even to start working in the first place. But if those skills are in place, this could be something to try out, because then that would be one person that the team can rely on, and that person would be with the team every day and hear the questions and be able to go and collect the answers as well. And over time, kind of also start to kind of channel that PO proxy to have more conversations with directly with customers, and start to bring more of that feedback straight into the team. And that's at least an idea that comes to mind.
Exactly. I really love this idea. And I think this would also create, if this PO proxy would also be someone that is not the manager of the team, that would create also the environment to have more conversations, right? The team feeling more comfortable to say, you know what, I'm not sure that's the right way to go. What do you think? Let's talk about this, right? Which maybe they wouldn't feel comfortable to say to their manager, but they would feel comfortable to say to this PO proxy possibly, and have more collaborative conversations and meaningful conversations.
Absolutely. Of course, caveat, it's a very hard role to get right, and the PO proxy is even harder than the PO role. All right. So, but that was the anti-pattern. Now let's focus on the opposite, the mirror image of this, Sofia, the best product owner you've ever worked with. How did they work?
So the best PO I worked with was a person that was bringing this guidance and focus to the team, right? So, okay, this is what we are focusing on, folks. This is what we are trying to reach. And then inviting for conversation, like, let's figure out together how we can do this, right? And let's share our brains. Because I think the solution space is a collaborative effort, right? Using really the collective intelligence of a team, right? Product designer, developers, product owner, product manager, depending what the team has. And also someone that brings the focus to the team, not just by providing the guidance, but also by shielding the teams at times, right? Especially if the teams are dealing with internal customers or users of the product they're building, then, we have this situation of people reaching out to the developers, hey, can you do this change for me? Can you improve this? Can you put this button there? So really having a product owner that would receive all that and shield the team by prioritizing the right things, by talking with the relevant stakeholders in a caring way, but at the same time not saying yes to everybody. So these were some of the qualities that this product manager actually was displaying. And this is also some of the things that contributed, of course, to having a lot of trust in the team, right? So that the team really trusted this person. And also that this person, for example, was never communicating deadlines to the outside without having discussed with the team, right? Which might be an anti-pattern at times, communicating deadlines and doing estimations without having consulted the team first of what is possibly maybe feasible as a first guess at least. Another important aspect, explaining the why, right? So why are we trying to reach that North Star we are trying to reach, this goal we are aiming for? Having good relationship with the business as well, right? So having this good communication with stakeholders and business, saying kindly no and not, just pushing back reactively. I think there is a very thin line at times because, of course, product owners are also people and they have their limits and boundaries. And last but not least, one thing this person was doing that I have in my mind is that, very often in the demos, of course, it makes sense to have stakeholders there to give feedback, to see the new release and stuff like that, right? Or users, customers, whoever is related to the respective company. And one brilliant thing this person was doing is that some key stakeholders that maybe would join every once in a while, we had the situation with a C-level executive basically from that company. She took the time to onboard this person and to have kind of a preparation, stakeholder management before the demo, so that this person also would appear in the demo for the team in a way that would accommodate for the team, but also so that this person would have expectations set, right? Okay, what is actually a demo? What makes sense to ask, what is part of that, and what is maybe part of a conversation privately with the product owner. Like, for example, I don't know, future feature requests or wild plans that might come in mind, right? So to not scare the team off, basically.
Absolutely. And that collaboration with stakeholders is so important because it can really drive the team into a chaotic environment if it's not done correctly.
Exactly.
Sofia, thank you for sharing that. So we're getting close to the end. Thank you for all of the stories you have shared with us this week. But before we go, where can people find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
So people can find more of me on LinkedIn. So by just finding me through my name. And another part is basically through Empathy at Work. Which is basically some sessions and trainings I do a lot with a former colleague of mine on nonviolent communication and how teams can communicate more effectively with each other by identifying how certain things are for them, how they feel, what needs they have, and then how can we create strategies to meet everyone's needs, basically, in a team.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. We'll put the link to all of those on the show notes so that people can go and find Sofia on LinkedIn and her work. So, Sofia, for now, thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Thank you, Vasto. Very happy to be here.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. So join us at scrummasterpodcast.com and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more full week of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.